So the entire trail. So we started way up here, near Pensacola, Gulf Islands National Seashore, through the Eglin Air Force Base, Econfina Creek, just south of the state capitol by St. Mark's. And then this is where that 50-mile road walk was. But you see this purple line? That's a proposed reroute. And most of that would be trail. So a 50-mile road walk, its days are numbered. I support the Big Bend reroute. And then Swanee River, Osceola, nice bike path, the Orlando bike path, and this is a 30-mile road walk. Its days are numbered too. That's a proposed reroute. Look at that. Now we are here. We are almost done. We only have 100 miles to go until Lake Okeechobee. I would say we are firmly in South Florida now.
We are now nearing the end of our hike across the state of Florida. Now well south of Orlando, nearing the supermassive Lake Okeechobee. And also nearing where I grew up and lived for about 20 years, the town of Jupiter. For us, this is almost to the red carpet. The temperatures are firmly in the 90s every day, and the lows at night aren't too much different. This is South Florida and approaching March, after all. We know we've already gone 900 miles and that there is only 200 miles left to go from here. It would take something quite catastrophic to stop us now, or at least I'd hope so. In general, I'd say this has been a dry year for the Florida Trail, as at this point I would have thought we would be walking through swamp and water up to our knees. But instead, all the swampland is dry, and only very occasionally do we have to go through anything wet. Still, the Florida Trail conditions can vary so wildly from year to year. And add on top of that the swampiness of this hike is quite overblown already. And maybe this is more normal than most people would like to think. It's much less of a swamp hike than you have ever heard. In fact, across all 3 of my through hikes on this trail, I could probably count the total amount of days that I've had to get my feet wet on just 2 hands. I do enjoy the cool water and the novelty of hiking in wetlands, but I also enjoy that my feet are happy and healthy.
So this is the Kissimmee River. Flows directly south into Lake Okeechobee. So for the next 80 miles or something, we're gonna be following this roughly through the palms and the sloughs and the swamps just off to the east of it. And then we'll be at Lake Okeechobee. Pretty cool.
I know a lot of people are always worried about hiking through water for prolonged periods of time, and really, I don't think it's that bad, and I think you'll find that out yourself as well. I think it's much more of a case of taking extra good care of your feet. You're not going to be able to hike a swampy section of trail the same way that you would hike a dry section of trail. You need to take your shoes off much more frequently to clean them out. You need to pay much closer attention to how your feet are feeling for potential blisters. And you need to walk a little bit slower, as oftentimes when the ground is undulating underneath the water, you cannot tell that that is happening, and it's easy to step in a pothole maybe, when otherwise you didn't really know it was there. So maybe you've heard the term the stingray shuffle. It's where you're not lifting your feet up very high off the ground and you're more or less just kind of sliding them back and forth to progress forward. That is my personal technique in the swamp. That, and along with just trying to take care of myself, and I wind up on the other side just as happy as when I entered. Now, just as well, when it's hot outside, the swamp can actually be really refreshing and a nice thing to be walking through. And it's really just that first step that can sometimes be difficult.
It's a good owl. Just hanging out.
Now, people often worried about the types of animals in swamps as well. From the alligators to the snakes to I don't know, anacondas and invasive species and things. And I would say, in a very, very, very large way, that the likelihood of you seeing these things is actually quite slim.
Yeah, it's a big one. What do you think it'd be like to wrestle with it? Very bad. I'm surprised it's just hanging out.
These animals want nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. So the vast majority of the time, if they hear you coming, they're gonna get out of there. They don't want you to come across them, and they don't want to come across you. It's definitely something to keep your eyes peeled for, snakes in particular. And if you do happen to come across one, to give them a wide breath as you go around them. But they're really not aggressive, they're not going to chase you, and they're just not much of a concern. Maybe the best thing that I can tell you, though, about these kinds of animals is, in the winter in Florida, these animals are cold-blooded. They want the sun, they want the heat, they want to do nothing but to lay in that sun and to be as inactive as they could possibly be.
Sprocket's been trying new techniques of how to carry a skateboard. Because it's big and it's awkward and it's heavy. So far, this is our favorite one. Right on the chest. Really distributes the weight. You see that weight distribution? It's next level. So this is the Kissimmee River. We've seen it a couple times now. But this is our last time seeing it. Because Kissimmee flows into Lake Okeechobee, which is, I don't know, like 8 miles down this not skatable bike path. So Lake Okeechobee. In my brain, we are very firmly in South Florida now. So we made it to the lake, Lake Okeechobee. We're here. This, actually like 5 miles from here, is the closest we'll get to where I grew up, the town of Jupiter. And Port Mayaca would be the closest point. If any friends want to come bring us sodas or something. I don't think that's gonna happen though. But hey, Lake Okeechobee, as big as it gets in Florida. Can't see across it, it's so big. Now we're choosing the east side around Lake Okeechobee, even though most people go west, because on the east you actually get to see the lake. It's right there all the time. We get awesome sunsets on the lake, we get to look at alligators on the lake. Whereas on the west, you don't really even see the lake that much. You just see, instead of nice water and waves and such, you just see grasslands as far as the eye can see. Not many trees and stuff out here. So the east, see the lake, better views, better sunsets. I think it's prettier. I like it. But the big downside is less towns. So for the majority of northbounders who are just beginning their hike, they are very much so interested in those towns, and there's like 4 of them or 5 of them that you pass through on the west side. So east side, better views, prettier. West side, more towns, easier logistics, stuff like that. So we chose east for the views. It's windy, but this is the western terminus of the Ocean to Lake Trail. The Ocean to Lake Trail runs 63 miles that way to the east to the Atlantic Ocean. So here we are, the Ocean to Lake Trail. Did I film this before the Florida Trail or after? You decide. So Lake Okeechobee, about 60 something miles to the beach. It's a great hike and we're gonna check it out. So the first mile of the Ocean to Lake Trail isn't anything spectacular. You walk through a farm on just a dirt road, but then you enter Dupuis Wildlife Management Area, which is wonderful single track trail through the woods with many beautiful little campsites throughout. I've seen tons of turkey here, I've seen alligators here. I was chased by an alligator once in Dupuis, so it's a pretty nice place. Now I forget exactly, but I think I'm gonna be in Dupuis for about 16 miles or something along those lines, and then I enter Corbett for another like 20 miles or something, and both through the woods on a nice trail. Just camp anywhere you like, really, but you know, the campsites are developed even though they're out way away from anywhere a car could ever get to. Immediately, right off the bat, compare walking a paved sidewalk along Lake Okeechobee for like another 50 miles, followed by a lot of dirt roads through sugarcane fields with toxic to drink water, compared to, you know, the next 30 miles for me is through the woods with beautiful camping, flowers, animals, cool birds. The Ocean to Lake starts out great. So thank you to everyone that's played a part in this trail. It really is great. And as far as I'm concerned, this should be the official end of the Florida Trail because of how great it is. But let's find out for ourselves here. So Dupuis is kind of far from any real cities, so it actually feels quite remote. I never see anyone out there. I feel like seeing anyone would be like kind of a rare recursion. I see tons and tons of wildlife, and this time around was no different. I saw baby alligators, I saw a really large armadillo, I saw great flowers. So as I continue to head to east towards the Atlantic Ocean, I'm getting closer and closer to larger cities. So frankly, it's kind of amazing that this trail really exists at all, and that these natural areas are here, and that they are so beautiful and accessible. But Dupuis and Corbett, the first half of this trail, is really the most remote, the most out there. Yeah, just through and through. Great trail, nice solitude, flowers, wildlife, and lots of changes in environment. Doing this trail again now, I can't help but to be reminded and smacked in the face by just how good it is and how perfect I think it would be as a beginning or an end to a through hike of the Florida National Scenic Trail. Walking across the entire state, and I just think the southern section that exists currently through Big Cypress and then the Seminole Reservation, and then following all of those roads along farms with water that you can't drink because it's all just like agricultural runoff from those farms. And then along Lake Okeechobee for what feels like 100 miles, whereas the Ocean to Lake Trail by comparison is 60 miles of just really wonderful trail. Great camping, you know, bridges and boardwalks and all sorts of different environments. You're starting at the beach, which the Florida National Scenic Trail at the north end ends at the beach, so it has some like synergy there. Like everything about the Ocean to Lake Trail just feels like a wonderful beginning or end. I love big cypress, you know? It's just all that stuff in between that I think kind of ruins it. Whereas with the Ocean Lake Trail, I would not feel the same way. There's good resupply on this hike as I'm about to pass a little plaza with a few restaurants and a small grocery store that sells smoothies and a gas station. And then you still get to see Lake Okeechobee and experience that, but for a much more brief time. And you get to see the best of Lake Okeechobee, the northeast corner. The best views where there's little benches like every mile that are covered and shaded, you know, so everything, I feel like lines up better for doing the Ocean Lake Trail instead of what is typically done on a through hike of the Florida Trail. So every time I've done this trail since I first began, it has just gotten better and better and better. And I hope you enjoy as well.
So if you've ever thought about hiking the Florida Trail and spending the winter in Florida instead of wherever snowy place you may live, but it's the roads that are really kind of holding you back from it, I think just treat the Ocean Lake Trail as the southern terminus, as it would remove 90 miles of road and pavement, and it would add an extra 30 miles of trail instead. Now, obviously, I'm very passionate about this as it turns out, carrying skateboards for 900 miles now, I've had a lot of time to think about why am I carrying a skateboard, and it's the roads. It is the roads, hands down. Now, I don't think the Ocean Lake Trail should entirely replace Big Cypress, because, I mean, Big Cypress is fantastic. Everyone loves Big Cypress. It's an incredible environment, and I think you should hike that. But I do think the Ocean Lake Trail should be recognized as a second terminus to the Florida National Scenic Trail, the second southern terminus. Now, this makes extra sense when you consider that there are two northern terminus. We started at one on the beach of Pensacola, but there's another trail that goes further north up to Alabama, which is an officially recognized northern terminus. So I think that there could very much so well be a second southern terminus as well. Now, add on top that the Ocean Lake Trail starts at the Atlantic Ocean, whereas the northern terminus in Pensacola finishes at the Gulf of Mexico. So you would be going from ocean to ocean, and there would be this wonderful kind of connectivity between that, to be hiking towards the thing and the place that you began, essentially. Add on top of all this that the Ocean Lake is just a fantastic hike. It's really amazing from beginning to end. And I think over the course of the entire hike, there's only 2 miles of road. So that's like 63 miles, 2 miles of road. And in that 2 miles, there's like restaurants and cafes and stuff. So it's a wonderful time with great camping, great environments, and for a very, very long time, you know, I've thought that the Ocean Lake Trail is like a miniature Florida National Scenic Trail because you pass through all of the same environments within that 60 miles as you would in the 1,100 mile Florida National Scenic Trail. You start on the beach and then you hike through these big ancient sand dunes, and you're going through pine flatwoods and palmetto scrubland. You're hiking along the ancient Loxahatchee River. You have the swampiness and the open wetland prairies and the palmetto hammocks of the Loxahatchee Slough and the Hungryland Slough. And then once you get out to Corbett and Dupuis, you're really out in the wild. You're not going to see very many people out there. And you truly feel the solitude of being on this single track trail out in the middle of the woods. The ocean or lake is just a fantastic time, and I recommend it to anyone. And personally, when I do the Florida Trail again, I am 100% going to treat this as one of my termini. The more I've thought about this, the more it makes sense. It makes sense in every possible way. The lack of roads, the more trail, the beautiful environment, the resupply, there is nothing about it that doesn't make sense to me. Whereas when it comes to the alternative, there's a lot of things that doesn't make sense to me, to say the least. So I hope that anyone who's apprehensive about the Florida Trail because of roads considers doing the Ocean to Lake Trail instead of starting in Big Cypress. I think a lot more people would find a lot more success with the Florida Trail if they did this. That's it. That's the ocean to lake.
Unfortunately, we're gonna walk like 100 miles this way instead to the Everglades and Big Cypress. But the Ocean to Lake Trail, if you're looking to spend some time in Florida in the winter and do some hiking, I think there is no better trail, no better section of the Florida Trail to do than the OTL. It's incredible. It's like a miniature Florida National Scenic Trail because you go through all the same environments from the beach to the sand dunes to little swampy areas and oak hammocks and palm hammocks and just matrices and infinite pine forests, and it's just awesome camping. It's a great trail. I'm like half tempted to just go that way and finish our Florida Trail hike at the beach, but not this time, maybe in the future.